Which video game is the gayest? That's the question that we seek to answer today. I've looked at 6 different multiplayer games with distinct playable characters that have lore written for them, and we're going to use that information and determine the most quantifiably gay video game that you can be playing right now. Full disclosure before we get into this, I am a straight guy on the internet. I'm not the world's leading authority on LGBTQ representation in media. This is not meant to be an indictment of companies who have too many or too few gay characters. I'm not here to pass on judgment. I'm just here to look at it and present my findings to you. However, it seems like every time I doom scroll on Twitter, I see people talking about straight erasure or whatever, so I want to give us a baseline gayness to compare against, which will be Gallup's most recent poll of 12,000 adult Americans, and that came back with 7.6% of all responders saying that they are a member of the LGBTQ community. Though it is worth noting that 6.8% declined to answer this question, so I'd imagine the true proportion is higher than 7.6% but lower than 14.4%. Here's a full breakdown to get more granular with exactly how these people identified. This sample size is large enough to be statistically significant, so we can extrapolate this data to the United States as a whole and see if these video games are more gay, less gay, or about the same amount of gay as America. Dead by Daylight is basically a horror movie slasher simulator and is the game that I'm most familiar with on this list, so I want to start here. The characters are divided up into killers and survivors, and there are currently 25 original survivors and 25 original killers, counting the fact that the Legion is canonically 4 different characters. Dead by Daylight's history with gay representation is super interesting because they have a huge LGBTQ fan base. They have just about every pride flag available that you can hang on your character's butt cheek, and they are very supportive of their queer content creators. But they didn't have any actual queer representation in the game until 2022, when the game had been around for about 6 years. Originally, the developers said that they wanted to keep the characters as blank slates so the players could headcanon their favorites into whatever they wanted them to be. They actively encouraged shipping and would share fan art of these ships.
Dead by Daylight, the only Twitch, the only dev stream that will show everything.
Yep, there is no, well, it is a mature audience. It's such a mature audience. Very mature. Anyway, can you stop showing us this kind of... No!
However, by 2020, they had added 4 canonically straight characters, which is pretty bad optics if you're going to say that there are no straight or gay characters in your game and then you accidentally go, oh whoops, they're all straights. So in 2022, Dead by Daylight released a new lore entry for David King, who had been one of the blank slate characters in Dead by Daylight for about 5 years, and the new lore essentially said, "You are gay." They mentioned that they did this to an already established character to avoid any new character being forever known as the first gay character in DBD, which makes sense. David's lore is about how he had a crush on a boy he met at camp, but external forces, like his mother's judgment and teasing by the kids at school, caused him to build up walls and to put on a tough guy persona, which eventually led to him becoming a mob enforcer. So, like Moonlight, but for a white British guy. Later in 2024, they doubled the number of gay characters in DBD when a spin-off comic book revealed that Suzy Lavoie, one of the 4 Legion killers, is a lesbian and she's in love with her best friend Julie. By the way, this screenshot is just a dream sequence. Julie is actually in love with a 3rd Legion member whose name is Frank, and is one of the whoopsie-daisy straight characters that they accidentally added when they were all supposed to be blank slates. But Susie's unrequited love basically allows her to be manipulated by Julie to participate in the Legion's crime sprees. With David and Susie being the only confirmed LGBTQ characters out of 50 original playable characters, Dead by Daylight is precisely 4% gay, so about half as gay as the low end of America's gayness. Now let's move on to Valorant, a tactical shooter made by Riot Games. Valorant is a game that has 25 different agents that you can play as currently. All of the characters in Valorant are part of the same organization, which is called Valorant, and they're trying to defend their Earth from a nearly identical parallel universe with their own Valorant squad. So as such, the teammates get to interact a lot, and 2 such teammates are Killjoy and Raze. They started out with a friendly rivalry that developed into something more, and that was canonized in 2022 when the official Valorant account tweeted this out. Then, in March of 2024, the new agent was added named Clove. Everything Riot puts out about Clove uses they, them pronouns to refer to them, which confirms Clove to be a non-binary character. So, plugging Valorant into the meter, we have 2 lesbians and a non-binary agent out of 25 characters, which means Valorant is about 12% gay. League of Legends is the next game on this list, also made by Riot Games, and they have 12 champions that have been confirmed as LGBTQ. Varus is a darkened spirit who resided in a well. One day, a soldier named Valmar jumped into the well along with his lover Kai because Kai was mortally wounded, and Valmar thought that the well's magical properties could save them both. And then Varus kind of fused their bodies together, and now all 3 souls share one body. So Varus as a whole is like 2/3 gay, and while, like I said, I'm not the expert on the subject, I think that rounds up to making them a combined total of 1 gay. Also, imagine being fused with your boyfriend and some random freeloading demon spirit. I can think of nothing that I would appreciate less. Nico, a shape-shifting lizard humanoid, is confirmed to be both a lesbian and gender fluid, attributed to that whole shape-shifting thing. It's heavily implied that she has a thing with Nidalee, who is another queer character. Diana and Leona used to be in lesbians together, but since one of them is the aspect of the moon and the other is the aspect of the sun, they don't really see each other that much because, they're opposites. They're in the sky at different times of the day. Nami, the Mirai, is in a throuple with 2 of her followers, 1 male and 1 female, so like a challengers type situation. The Mirai are described as being very open with their love, so this makes sense. Twisted Fate and Graves were 2 partners in crime that liked to swindle and cheat their way into money until a heist gone wrong led to Graves being imprisoned. It's revealed in their short story that they have feelings for each other, with Graves being purely into dudes and Twisted Fate being down for anything and anyone. Cassante is a strong warrior and hunter, and his ego compelled him to prove himself by hunting more and more dangerous beasts, and it got to the point where it drove away his boyfriend and taught him a valuable lesson about humility. Vi and Caitlyn were heavily theorized to have a more than strictly working relationship based on their lore. This intensified after Arcane Season 1 came out, but their lesbianness was confirmed by Riot in a Pride art piece in 2023. And then we have Rel, the metal bending lady who once toppled a school on top of all of the instructors. She has flirtatious voice lines for all sorts of characters regardless of their gender identity. Tallying up the numbers, out of 167 champions in League of Legends, 12 of them are members of the LGBTQ community, making League of Legends 7.2% gay. Moving on to Rainbow Six Siege, this game is a tactical shooter made by Ubisoft that deals a lot with close quarters, breaching an area, that kind of combat. Out of the game's 71 operators, 6 of them are queer, so I guess you could call them the Rainbow Six. Caveira grew up as a street rat with 9 brothers and pivoted to anti-terrorist work as a plea deal when she was 16. She is dating a woman named Camila. Jack Estrada, otherwise known as Pulse, seems like a really chill dude. He's attuned to noticing the tiniest changes in facial expressions and body language, and is described as being calm and professional in action, but warm and excitable outside of work. It's very vaguely hinted at that he swings both ways in his psych profile and in-game lore, but this was confirmed by his writer. Osa is a Croatian operative who is the daughter of 2 toy makers. This, coupled with a love of old science fiction movies, inspired her to tinker with robotics like a mad scientist. In her lore entries, it's offhandedly mentioned that she's transgender, and that the opposition she faced from friends and relatives and support from other friends and relatives was very formative to her. Santiago Flores Lucero lived a life of crime in Buenos Aires, but he wasn't like other crime junkies because he would typically rob crime lords. When he was found out, the crime lords murdered his mother. Flores was forced to flee the country, and he started a food truck out in Los Angeles where he would secretly perform heists. Out in LA, he met and married his husband, who seemingly knows about Flores' crimes but is super chill with it. Which honestly, W marriage. 2 dudes chilling out in a food truck while one goes and robs criminals? Hell yeah. Not much else is known of Flores' husband because he's very private about him, likely due to what happened to his mother, but he always keeps his wedding ring on his person. Sens is a Belgian operator obsessed with psychology and physics and employs that in their combat with a portable hologram projector grenade thingy to just mess with people. They go by the pronouns of they, them, so there's some non-binary rep. And Tubero, an operative introduced in 2024, is the latest LGBTQ representation in Rainbow Six Siege. His lore is about how he used to compete in races for rowing and outclass the competition, but he never won because he'd always just Lightning McQueen it if one of his competitors crashed, because empathy. 0 is the only number of acceptable casualties to him, and there's a blink and you'll miss it part in his lore that says, after he transitioned, which means he's transgender. So 6 out of 71 operators makes Rainbow Six Siege about 8.5% gay. Now it's time for Overwatch 2, the entirely distinct and innovative sequel to Overwatch 1. Overwatch has 40 different heroes of varying backgrounds, all united for a common cause. And there's a running joke amongst gamers, both gay and straight alike, for Overwatch's approach to LGBTQ representation, because they always do it through short stories and comics, and it typically happens shortly after Activision Blizzard gets heat for a controversy. So the joke is that John Overwatch keeps a list, and as soon as something bad happens at the company, he picks up the phone, does a spit take, and is like, Bobby Kotick did what? And then he hits the panic button and releases the next short story in the hopes that it distracts from the bad PR. But as I said earlier, I am merely a straight delivering this information to you. I'm not the judge on any of this. Overwatch's first member of the LGBTQ community is Tracer, the time-jumping British lady who is dating a woman named Emily. This was revealed in a comic that they released where she is looking for a Christmas gift for her partner. Soldier 76, the jaded vigilante super soldier, has an ex-boyfriend as revealed in a short story where Anna finds a photo of him and his ex. Lifeweaver is a support hero from Thailand who uses BioLight technology to hear others. When researching the representation in different games, I found this character the funniest because in the Overwatch wiki, pretty much every statement about him is like, Lifeweaver, who is openly pansexual, is a support hero. I thought maybe that's what the official Overwatch materials were going to be doing as well, so I got really excited to see that, but no. Baptiste and Farah were the next two to be revealed as queer characters, both in, you guessed it, a short story, where Baptiste tells Farah that he's interested in Cole Cassidy, but isn't sure if Farah and Cole are a thing, and Farah assures him that she and Cole aren't a thing because Farah does not swing that way. Her exact quote is, "He's like a brother to me, and besides, I'm a lesbian." Probably the most iconic coming out that I've ever read. And finally, we have Venture, a close quarters brawler archaeologist who is obsessed with adventure, as their name would imply. Everything about them on the wiki and in Overwatch material uses they and them pronouns, so we can just assume that they are non-binary. Analyzing the numbers, 6 out of 40 of Overwatch's heroes are members of the LGBTQ community, which puts them at a 15%. The final game that we are going to talk about is Apex Legends. This game is set in like the 28th century and it revolves around what is basically the Hunger Games if they were all career tributes and had access to medical care to prevent them from dying for good. Makoa Gibraltar, the big guy who throws down his shields, he's in a relationship with a man named Nicholas. Bangalore, who seems to know everything about every gun she picks up, also knows everything about every woman she picks up. Am I right, ladies? Bloodhound, the badass Norse mythology-obsessed hunter and tracker, is non-binary and goes by they-them pronouns. Loba, the teleporting thief, has been in relationships with men and women and is currently dating another Apex legend named Valkyrie. Fuse is described as a ladies' man, a man's man, and an all-around manly man, and is down for dating just about anyone, which is just a really cool way of saying he's pansexual. Fuse and Bloodhound either have currently or have had in the past a fling in the lore for Apex. I'm not super on top of all of this. Valkyrie, one of the biggest lore connections between Apex Legends and Titanfall, is very, very open about what she's into.
The Apex Games. Come for revenge, stay for the beautiful women.
As I mentioned earlier, she is currently dating Loba. Obi Adolasim, otherwise known as Seer, is described as someone who looks at the hearts of others and doesn't limit himself to any identity when choosing who he loves, which is a very dramatic way of saying that you're pansexual. And Catalyst is the most recent LGBTQ addition to Apex Legends. She is a transgender woman who refers to her transition as a very difficult process to reckon with and to go through, but is something that has given her a lot of inner strength. I know that we're probably going to have people saying that I forgot about Mirage, who is a lot of things and has straight up said that he occasionally questions his own sexuality, but nothing has been confirmed with him, so we're going to keep him out of this count. So that gives us 8 characters out of 26, which makes Apex Legends a whopping 31% gay and the winner of the title of the gayest video game. Let's take a look at overall statistics. Here are the stats broken down game by game once again. We have looked at 379 different characters across 6 games, with 37 of them being members of the LGBTQ community, making the entire sample roughly 9.8% gay. About 1 in every 10 characters are queer, which falls well within the range that we gave at the beginning of the video, where America stands somewhere between 7.8 and 14.4%. It kind of makes sense to me that they fall squarely within this range. I feel like from a business standpoint, you want to appeal to as many people as possible, so doing strictly proportional representation is not very practical. Like with 1% of the population being transgender or non-binary, it's not really feasible to look at Apex Legends and be like, all right, you've got 2 of those already, so you better make sure that the next 170 characters you make are cisgender, or else I'm gonna make a ruckus about it, you know? And something that I see a lot is people saying stuff like, oh, it's a game about killing people. Why does it matter who they want to bang? I mean, maybe to you it doesn't matter, and that's totally fine. But to others, stories and backgrounds can humanize the pixels that we see on our screen and help us connect with them. The combination of images and stories and voice acting makes video games an interactive art form, and we as humans have used art to connect and relate with others since the dawn of time. I'm sure that to a lot of executives at the corporate level, it's just another tick in the representational box to try to bring in a new group of people, but the executives aren't the ones who are making these characters. It's the writers, and in a lot of cases, these writers have a deep and personal connection to the characters that they write. So just because you, the protagonist of life, don't see it as necessary or think that anybody who wants to feel represented in a video game is just falling for some sort of corporate BS, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, and it certainly doesn't mean that everybody has to feel the exact same way as you. So maybe we should all just chill out a bit and play our video games, you know? And finally, if your issue with anything that we've talked about during this video has anything to do with like your religion, I want to know what religion you're in that permits any of this.
You should smile.
But anyway, my name is Not Fricking Nick. I hope this video has been entertaining, or at the very least, good background noise, and I will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.